Hello, welcome to Inside the Birds Postgame Live, presented by my bookie. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with my bookie. Well, for the first time since weeks 3 and 4 of 2021, the Eagles have lost consecutive regular season games by double digits. They fall to the Dallas Cowboys on the road, 33-13, and that's 1 week following a humiliating 23-point home loss to the 49ers. That's now, if you're counting at home, and many of you are, 43-point margin of defeat in consecutive losses, which begs the question, who are these Philadelphia Eagles? I'm Geoff Mosher, and joining me as usual is former Eagles tight end Clayton Harbor. Adam Caplan will rejoin us on next Monday night. Clay, I got to ask you, I just said the question, who are these Philadelphia Eagles? We know who we are. Do you know who the Philadelphia Eagles are anymore?
Yeah, we definitely know who we are. You introduced me today. Full name, must not only time I got that growing up was when my mom or grandma were mad at me, Clayton Harbor. But right now, I'll be honest, these past 2 weeks, the Eagles don't look like a full or complete football team. I mean, offensively and defensively. Obviously, right now, all the talk is about this defense, the point they gave up points on 10 consecutive drives. I mean, just 24 points that fast and offering up little resistance. Defensive backfield just looks completely lost. We're talking about zone coverage, man coverage. There's really not a lot they can do to slow the Cowboys down or to slow the 49ers down. And right now, in my opinion, they just don't seem like they're in the same stratosphere, they're on the same level as these other football teams. Something would have to drastically change for me to think that the Eagles are on the same level as the 49ers or the Cowboys after these last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that feeling. I mean, this is not the Eagles team that we're accustomed to seeing. I did say, Clay, so I don't want to totally overreact, but I have to react to what we see in the moment. And over the last 2 weeks, when the Eagles were 7-1, at the start of that stretch where we called it Murderer's Row of Dallas, Kansas bye week, then Kansas City, then Buffalo, then San Fran, then Dallas again. I said, that's 5 tough games, but at 7-1, if the Eagles go 3-2 in that stretch, then they're still in a pretty good spot. And lo and behold, they did win the first 3 games. They beat Dallas, beat Kansas City, beat Buffalo. They've lost the last 2. So I don't want to be a hypocrite now and say it's a terrible spot, but I also don't think I envision that the 2 losses were going to be by 43 combined points either, and things being broken that you're not sure can be fixed. And when we look back on this Cowboys game, I don't see it the same way as that 49ers game. I think the 49ers are the best team in football when healthy. They proved it. They created all sorts of mismatches offensively and defensively for the Eagles. The Eagles didn't have any turnovers. They just got smacked the F up. This game, I think the Eagles look at this tape and they kick themselves. They say Dallas may have won this game by X amount of points, but the turnovers, the drop passes, the bad defensive lapses, which, the defensive lapse happen. That's this team. But I think this one's a little bit different. I think the Eagles will look at this and say, we've got to get ourselves back on track and become who we were, because if we played way better, we could have won this game. I don't know if they're going to beat the 49ers, healthy versus healthy, good versus good, A game versus A game, but I don't think Dallas is 20 points better than the Eagles on every given night.
Yeah, it's a 20-point game. I don't think they're that far apart as a team there from the Cowboys. And you hit the nail on the head with the 49ers, in my opinion. The 49ers are just that much better of a team than the Eagles. So for the Eagles, you're talking about they're in a position. As far as positioning goes, yes, if they beat the Seahawks, everybody said you go 3-2 during this stretch, that's not a bad deal. But the way it happened, these are 2 teams in the NFC. One of them is your division rival, and you just got embarrassed by both of them and showed that how susceptible you are. And when teams turn on tape and watch film against you, they're going to see that your defensive backfield is bad. You're not guarding anybody. Your pressure rate has gone way down. Like, where are the sacks at? This team, since the last 6 quarters, they haven't been getting any sacks. So for me, it's just opening up a lot of holes, showing a lot of holes that you can exploit. And then you got the fact that if the Eagles went out, they're still in a good position. But for me, you got to hope that you're on the opposite side of the bracket is the 49ers and the Cowboys, and you hope they beat each other up getting to the NFC Championship game, because right now, I mean, they can't beat the 49ers in my opinion, and the Cowboys do look like a better team. Like you said, you talk about the fumbles, the turnovers, AJ, Devontae, Jalen, you can fix those things. But as far as, the 49ers and obviously even stopping this team, it's going to be difficult.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. So let's set the stage a little bit here as far as where the Eagles stand right now. They are 10-3. The Niners beat Seattle earlier in the day, so they improved to 10-3. So that's the same record as the Eagles, but they now have control of the tiebreaker. So with plenty of football still left to play, though, the Niners have control for the moment of the top seed in the NFC. Now Dallas just improved to 10-3, and obviously the Eagles and Dallas split the series, but Dallas has a much tougher schedule with the games. They've got to play the Bills next week, then the Dolphins, the Lions, and the Commanders to finish the season. The Eagles have to go on Monday night and play Seattle, but they end the season with almost 3 layups. Even as bad as they're playing, they have the Giants, the Cardinals, and then the Giants back to back to back. So that's a good spot for the Eagles. The San Francisco 49ers still have the Baltimore Ravens left to play. So to your point, the number 1 seed, not out of question. And it would be great for the Eagles to right ship a little bit, get the number 1 seed, and see if the Dallas San Francisco matchup can't happen before they either have to play the Eagles.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I don't think, I mean, the way the 49ers are rolling, I don't see them losing even to the Ravens. So I think that the Eagles are gonna have to, they're gonna have to play in the opening round, and obviously you want that bye, and that's what happened with them last year. You got the bye, but overall, if they can get on the opposite side of the bracket as the 49ers, then I think you have a path to the NFC Championship game. If you have to play the Niners in the divisional round and you're stuck playing them, that's not a place you want to be. This team is graded as the best offense and defense by all the metrics. I mean, this is an all-around team that you want to avoid, especially with the kind of football they're playing right now. I mean, it hasn't been pretty, and obviously they're going to clean some things up. We got the turnovers, they're going to improve, and you got a little bit of time off to the Monday Night Football, and these are 2 teams that are coming off of Thursday Night Football games. I didn't like how the schedule was set up for that purpose. These good football team get extra time to look at film, to rest up. They're going to be more fresh. They're going to be well rested. They're going to have extra tape on the Eagles. Obviously, these teams know each other, but now I feel like it's more of a even matchup. You don't have these extra days of rest.
Yeah.
You're getting back Monday night. You got time. Get back on your normal routine. As a player, the routine's everything. Your schedule's everything. Monday night against the Seahawks, who are a good football team, it's not going to be an easy cakewalk before the last 3, like you said. But you get this next game, you put yourself in a great position to still be where you want to be heading into playoffs, even after all this, getting outscored by what they have these last 2 games, 2 of the ugliest games I can remember back to back for Eagles. So I think they're still in a good spot. You just got to go into Seattle and take care of business.
Give me the player's perspective of being on a team that's very good, but has hit a rut, is doing some uncharacteristically bad things, may now suddenly feel that they're not as dominant, right, as they were, but still knowing this is a very good team that has a chance to win 4 games that they play. How important is the tone being set? What is it like this week in the locker? Is this easily flushable? What do you think?
Yeah, with a team with as many veterans as the Eagles have, I mean, we've talked about Kelsey and we've talked about Lane and obviously Fletch. Fletch had the big fumble today that Jalen Carter took back for the touchdown. I mean, you talk about those guys that have been there. They've done it over and over again. Even guys like Slay and Bradbury that didn't have a lot of success today. You have the interference scoring, getting touchdown score. They've been in these situations. So they know you're only as good as your last week, and every week you got a new opportunity. So they're going to come in. What you have to do is you got to get a good week of practice in. you got to focus up and you got to put a good product on the field. And I think with the mix of veterans and young players they have, these veterans will take over. Jason Kelsey's been in this situation before. Lane Johnson has been in this situation before. Fletcher Cox has been here, and even Jalen Hurts has faced some adversity in his young career. So I really like the Eagles team. And as a player, you come in and you just got to focus on the details. That's what they're going to do. They're going to come in. You got to accept that coaching. It's going to be a tough day of film. When they come in tomorrow, you sit down. These coaches are going to be a little on edge. Everybody's going to be a little on edge. 2 losses in a row. You got to be highly critical of yourself and look at the ways on film that you can get better. And that's what they're going to do. And then you're going to flush it, and then you're going to move on and immerse yourself in the Seahawks and let that game go. You're going to fix it for a day. You're going to chew on it. You're going to stew on it. And then you're on to Seattle and you're immersing yourself in that game plan, just putting everything towards that next win.
100%. I do think the Eagles have the right makeup in the locker room to be able to rebound, to come together and do that. But I will say, I almost trust more so in the veterans who have been there. This is a big, I mentioned this in the pregame show. This is a big moment now for Nick Sirianni. This is the moment where the honeymoon starts to end. This is adversity. This is 2 big losses in a row. You had that happen in week 3 and week 4 of your first year, but nobody expected you to be all that good. You haven't had losses like that since. You have a 53-man roster that a lot of people thought was very good, even with some flaws. So the tone that he sets, the way he projects himself this week coming up and moving forward, I think is very big for the Eagles. And we'll know a week from now, 2-3 weeks, if the tone being set is the right one, or if maybe this is not, his cup of tea. I have a feeling he's going to handle this adversity pretty well, just based on how he's been so far and how much respect that he has from his players. So I would gamble on the Philadelphia Eagles figuring out a way to turn this thing around. And you know what, Clay, is just as frustrating as losing games in back-to-back weeks by double digits. Also frustrating is trying to find reasonable tickets these days online. That's why you got to get Game Time. Get the Game Time app. It's the fast, easy way to buy tickets for sporting events, concerts, theaters, any shows near you, with killer last-minute deals and all-in prices and the best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Right now, you just take your phone and you start scrolling. You're 2 taps away from tickets to seeing the Birds, Flyers, Sixers, local college hoops, the Nutcracker at the Academy of Music. There's just a lot of great shows out there. So the best part is Game Time offers event cancellation protection and job loss protection. It's the only ticketing app that gives you the complete peace of mind with your purchase. They're all in prices, not only show you the total up front, but you also see the view from your seat so you know exactly what to expect at checkout. Game Time is obsessed with helping you save money. They offer deals right up to the start of an event and even an hour after the event starts. They have the zone deals that let you pick the section while Game Time picks the seats to give you the best savings. And of course, there's the Game Time guarantee, where if you find tickets in the same section and row for less money, Game Time credits you 110% of the difference. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code BIRDS, BIRDS, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's creating an account and using the redeem code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. I want to start off, as we get into the offense and defense, Clay, really talking about the offense, because this is the group that I think is going to watch the tape, and I really hope that they point the finger at themselves. It's not to absolve the defense, but I think 15 weeks into the season, we know that this defense, there's no savior. It's not a great defense. It lacks some dynamic ability up front.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, in the back. It's the offense that had bailed out the defense earlier. They've got to get back to doing that. When you fumble on the opening possession of the game and then fumble on the opening possession of the second half, that's, to me, that's sort of the game right there, because you're giving up possessions. It looked ugly for a while, but if you think about it, the Eagles really didn't have a problem moving the ball. They actually averaged 6.2 yards per play, Clay. I mean, the Cowboys only averaged 5.3 yards per play. The Eagles ran the ball fairly effectively, much better than the week before. But when you turn the ball over and your defense isn't stopping anybody, you take yourself out of the game immediately.
Yeah, I mean, we've said it once, we'll say it again. I mean, turnovers is the most telling stat in who wins or loses, and that's in every level of football. You look at the turnover margin, then that's going to tell you who won the game, and you can't do that. I mean, first drive of the game, like you said, turnover. That just gives momentum. Momentum's a real thing. You're giving momentum to the opponent, and then your two-star receivers. I mean, two fumbles. Those are big drives too. When you have a chance to come back, the defense actually scored more points tonight than the offense. Okay,
Mhm.
like this, you can't let that happen. You're supposed to have a high-powered offense. You get your tight end back, Dallas Goddard. Everybody's so happy and thrilled to have Goddard back. Okay, maybe that was the problem with the offense. Didn't look like it to me, but like you said, there were good plays in there, but you just got to take care of the football. And it's crazy because you can fix a lot of things. You can draw up schemes, you can run certain routes, but as far as holding on to the football goes, there's really nothing, no way you can just work on ball security and hope nobody fumbles. I mean, it's a tough thing to work. Sometimes you keep it, sometimes you don't. It's
Mhm.
really fickle and it takes momentum, but you just got to focus. You can't turn the ball over. Teams will talk about that all the time, and it's crazy that you can go through all of football, scheme, plan, and if you just turn the ball over, none of it matters. So they got to get back to playing smart football and not letting that happen.
Yeah, I'm really surprised the game AJ Brown had. Not only did he, lose, he dropped the ball that I thought Jalen put so perfectly right along deep right on third down too, 3rd and 5.
Yeah.
And he did the late hands thing, which he's so good at. And then the ball goes right through the hands. And then obviously Stephon Gilmore just prized the ball out of his hands on that possession. There are times where I think that he is the most electrifying player on the field. And maybe he's a victim of that because when he has a bad game like today, it sort of looks like, I don't want to say he wasn't trying. It just sort of looked like, I don't know, like he just didn't. Again, sort of being a victim of his greatness is that when he's not great, it really sticks out like a sore thumb.
And that's crazy. I mean, you showed the standard that you have for AJ Brown. The guy has 9 catches for 94 yards,
Right.
10 yards a catch, and 13 targets. And we're talking about, what's wrong with this guy? But that's just who he is. That sideline catch, that's a really tough catch. But
Hmm.
your name is AJ Brown. You got to make that play. If I'm running on the sideline and somebody threw that ball to me, Jeff, for better or worse, nobody's going to say, damn, Clay Harper had to make that play. I'm shocked he didn't. When you're AJ Brown, you're getting paid what you're getting paid. You were in MVP discussion the first half of the season, and you're
Yeah.
making play after play. You got to make that play. You're the guy on the team that makes that play. Most
Right.
most guys don't. Tough play, you do. That's why you're that dude. That's why you say you're the best receiver in football. You
Hmm.
got to make that play. And I think Stephon Gilmore got after him a little bit, forcing that turnover. There's a little chippy, they're going back and forth a little bit. I think AJ's an ultimate competitor, but he's got to be able to hold on to the ball. You can't be a guy for this team, for this offense to be successful. You got to be this big time player, and you can't turn the ball over, and you got to make those plays. So
Yeah.
even for Devontae, when they're coming back, he's a guy that you've been counting on, been playing good. You can't fumble the football going down there. You're still in the game at that point.
Hmm.
That slammed the door. If he doesn't fumble there, it's a coin flip in my opinion, because the momentum's back. The Eagles are going to get a stop and they're going to come back. They're going to score again.
Yeah.
So both these guys hold on to the ball. We got completely different games. So I don't think the sky is falling as far as playing against the Cowboys is concerned. I still think this is a very beatable team for the Eagles.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, just to enhance that point a little bit, the Eagles did not turn the ball over against the Cowboys in the first game that they won 28-23 in Philly. All right. And that to me is such a huge difference. They created a takeaway in that game. They didn't turn the ball over. And that's how you win a one possession game against a really good team, 28-23. When you give two possessions away like they did, even though they got one back, like you mentioned, with the Fletcher Cox strip sack and Jalen Carter scoring a touchdown, you want to be the one that doesn't need that. You give away two offensive possessions, you're really, especially right at the start of both halves, you really hurt yourself. Another thing I want to draw attention to is a big, I guess, refrain that you hear from Nick Sirianni about how to win games. You win games in his mind by preventing explosive plays on defense and creating explosive plays on offense. And I thought the Eagles ran the ball efficiently today,
Yeah.
way better than they did against the Niners. But what really seems to stick out lately is they're not getting explosive runs. You know, DeAndre Swift's longest run was 7 yards. Kenneth Gainwell's longest run, 11 yards. Boston Scott's longest run, 4 yards. So while they averaged over, I think, 4.5 a carry, they were certainly back on track with an efficient running game compared to what happened against the 49ers. They just really are. The way that Minnesota game went in week 2. Remember when DeAndre Swift was just blowing through that Vikings defense?
Absolutely.
You thought the combination of this offensive line and that running back in particular was going to create a lot of explosive plays in the run game. And the fact that they haven't, I think, has just made it even more difficult on the passing game to carry, which right now they're having trouble doing. But first of all, they're carrying the defense. Now they have to sort of carry the offense because they're not getting the explosive run that the Eagles offense is known for. Those were back-breaking, demoralizing plays that are just not happening. Again, it's not a bad run game,
Yeah.
but it's not the weapon that it used to be. How do you get a running game to be more explosive when you have an explosive runner? Do they have to go back to the drawing board on maybe, more gap, more power pulling guy? Like, what's the answer there?
I mean, obviously, it depends a little bit on what defense you're playing against and who you're playing against as far as scheme's concerned. But you got Cam Jurgens back, you got Dallas Goedert back.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's a symbiotic relationship, and you got to be able to throw the ball and situationally, if you're, if you're ahead,
Mm-hmm.
a team's, got to play you a certain way. If you're behind, a team's got to play you a certain way. But I think it comes back to is cliche as it sounds. It just comes back to details and in continuing to run it. Because if you continue to run it and continue to pound it, don't get away from it too early. And obviously, in a situation where you're down 24-6 at halftime,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to be able to run the ball as much just because the amount of possessions. You start counting the clock, being like, yo, for us to get back into this game, we're going to have to score 3 touchdowns if we want to win this thing. So you start trying to extend the game, obviously, by throwing the ball a little more, here and there. But you got to be consistent with it, and it's not going to, sometimes you'll get 4 or 5 explosives in a row. You get the defense tired, you pound, you break one. So for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's just sticking with it. You got the big boys up front. You stick with it. I think Swift, we've seen him earlier in the season. I don't know if he's slowing down a little bit, but I think that we've seen he can create those explosives. He has good vision, and he's a player that can do a lot of different things with the ball in his hand. So if you just keep at it, I think eventually you'll create those explosive plays, but you got to be consistent and you got to stick to it.
Yeah, I mean, he had a 43-yarder against Minnesota. He had a couple of 20-yarders the following week against Tampa Bay, 29-yarder. He hasn't had an explosive run since the Kansas City and Buffalo games where he had a 35-yarder and a 36-yarder. And both of those, if you remember, were really big runs that set up touchdown drives that were really important for the Eagles as they came back. But since then, I mean, his longest run against San Francisco was 4, and then this game against Dallas, his longest run is 7. So there's obviously an importance there, and the Eagles just have to figure out a way to get him. And you're right, it's hard to keep feeding him the ball and getting him to break the backs when you put yourself in an early hole. Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
But that is, again, one of those things that you feel, if you're going to have a leap of faith here that the Eagles turn this around, that they will stop turning the ball over at that kind of rate. They will get ahead of some of these bad teams, and they will be able to get the explosive runs. The only other thing I want to say on offense was I don't think I understood the decision by Nick Sirianni. Not that it mattered in the end, but he went for it on 4th and 8 at Dallas's 30. Now, at the time, they're down 27-13. They're down 14 points. So you have a chance to get a field goal there. It was definitely makeable for Jake Elliott, right? And by the way, what a freaking game for kickers that was.
Dude, unbelievable. The
Cowboys,
yes.
But so you have a chance to make it 11, right? And then sort of hope that you can get the ball back. And if you get the ball back twice and score both times, you'll go ahead. But on 4th and 8, I know the percentages said, if the analytics said you go for it there, but I think the analytics taken apart like what the average is on field goals, right? From that distance. And Jake Elliott's average has to be a way better than whatever the NFL average is. And on 4th and 8, when you need 9 yards to get a first down, you know that Dallas is going to come after you and speed up the quarterback's clock and almost make it impossible for him to be able to. The only way he throws a ball that can be completed past 8 yards is if he throws the fade, right? Like a low percentage type of play. So I just think the way the game was going there, I would have taken the points. Maybe it doesn't matter in the end, but I just thought it was a curious decision. What'd you think?
Yeah, same. No, I tweeted that live during the game. I said bad call by Nick Sirianni going
Mhm.
for it, and bad call by Brian Johnson. I mean, you have a inclination they're going to light you up right there and send a little bit of a blitz, and you're just not prepared for it. You're throwing the ball to the hot route and the drag route. You know, if he catches it, and best case scenario, you're still getting tackled behind the line, behind the first down marker. So I'm
Right.
like, okay, I didn't understand either of those calls by Brian Johnson or by Nick Sirianni to go for it. I was with you. Obviously, maybe the analytics say something else, but it's 4th and 9, and there's still time in the game. And our good friend Doug Peterson had a similar call during the game
Mhm.
with Jacksonville today, and I was like, what is Doug doing? It was like there was like 8 minutes left in the game, and he went for it on 4th down, lost the game there too. So I think a lot of these coordinators or in head coaches are just being a little bit too risky.
Could be the start of something great though, because Clay, in 2017, when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, Doug Peterson infamously went for it on a 4th and 8, almost the same exact spot
Oh,
from where Nick Sirianni did it. He went for it on 4th and 8, didn't get it. This was against the Giants in week 3. The Giants drove all the way down the field. Well, all the way. I mean, they got the ball almost near midfield after that.
yeah.
They drove down the field, scored a touchdown. Doug did not look good, but the Eagles won that game on a Jake Elliott 61-yard field goal, and then off they went onto their Super Bowl. So maybe there's the start of something here, although the Eagles did not win this game.
Yeah.
And they didn't win this game, Clay, because they have not been able to stop anybody on defense for quite a while now. So let's get to that side of the ball in a second. First, I mean, winter is almost here. I know, Clay, you're in Chicago. It's probably like
No,
minus
it's awful.
320 degrees right now. And
Pretty
in
much.
yeah, in Philly, it's just pouring rain. It's actually warm, but it's pouring. It's terrible, terrible night. Wintertime's here. It gets dark really soon. Everyone's out getting their holiday shopping done. Nobody, and I mean nobody, has time to sit down and plan out a meal for a night or a week. So that's why we love HelloFresh. They deliver farm fresh food with pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes right to our doorstep. No have to waste time at the grocery store, because
Mm.
America's #1 meal kit helps make home cooking easy, efficient, and affordable. With HelloFresh, the shopping's already done. The perfect amount of ingredients arrive with step-by-step recipe cards. It doesn't get more efficient than that. Plus, HelloFresh saves you time and money. It's 25% less expensive than takeout, so you get a home cooked meal without digging deep into your wallet. And don't forget about taste and selection. That's really important with food, right? Taste and selection. They make food for meat lovers, seafood lovers, vegetarians. You can try any. If you can think of a recipe, HelloFresh makes it. So go to HelloFresh.com/50Eagles and use the code 50Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/50Eagles and use the promo code 50Eagles, all one word, 50 Eagles, for 50% off plus free shipping. Act now for America's #1 meal kit. All right, Eagles defense. What'd you think of Shaq Leonard's debut tonight?
Yeah, right.
I do not. I didn't spot him on the field. Did you?
No,
Okay.
did not.
Yeah, not surprising given like he just showed up. Obviously, we talked about in the pregame show. I think Howie had a little bit too much of a dice roll there, waving Christian Ellis and thinking that he would just come back to the practice squad and be elevated. So Nick Morrow and Zach Cunningham had to basically play the whole game with Cunningham nursing a bum hamstring. And
Yeah.
you saw Dallas. I mean, they clearly felt that they could run the ball up the middle and set up some makeable third downs. And for a lot of the game, that's what they did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were you
No,
surprised the way they've been throwing the ball around lately? Were you surprised they kind of went into ground control a little early?
no, and the Eagles have been really good stopping the run. So I was a little surprised to see that. And, Dallas had success there, and that opened up a lot of other things. And I was a bit surprised just because everybody's seen, and I know on the film, like you turn on that film, it's hard to look at that defensive backfield from the Eagles and not let your eyes get big and say, okay, there's so many
Mhm.
holes in this defensive backfield. We got matchup after matchup that we love. who's going to guard CD in the slot. They got Bradley Roby. I mean, like, this guy, how long has this guy been? Their eyes are lighting up, and Bradbury's not been playing well. Slay's getting pass interference calls here and there, but they were disciplined, and they stuck
Mhm.
to the run game. And hats off to Mike McCarthy there, because a lot of teams would come out just slinging the ball, and they'd get carried away, and maybe the Eagles pass rush could really get involved early and get in a rhythm of not having to worry about the run and just getting into pass rush rhythm and really get Dak off his spots and make it tougher for him. So I thought they did a good job of running the football. Was I surprised a little bit about it? Yes. I thought they would try to attack him through the air from the beginning, which, I mean, they did plenty of. I think they were at 270 yards on the day.
Mhm.
But a good game plan by Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point about how the Eagles have been good against the run, and some of that is sort of, I don't know, it's sort of like history, and lately they have not been very
Yeah.
good. And this goes back to the Kansas City Chiefs game. The Chiefs ran for 168 yards against the Eagles. The Bills 173. Now I know Josh Allen ran for about 80 or 90, but
Yeah.
rushing yards are rushing yards. They didn't contain him very well. The Niners, we saw they had 146 yards, and Dallas, which only ran for 73 yards in the first. This is the surprising part. Dallas almost
Yeah.
won the first game. They only ran for 73 yards. This time around, 138 yards on 4.3 per carry. No one particularly killed them because Pollard averaged 3.7 and Dowdle averaged 3.8. But I think to the point is that their ability to kind of move the chains that way, set up some pretty makeable third downs, right? And then, of course, Dak on third down with CD Lamb and Jake Ferguson was that part has been the Eagles all year. They're just not stopping an interior combination like that.
Yeah. Jake Ferguson is really concerning for me. The Eagles are not good at stopping opposing tight ends. I think their passer rating against was 117 coming into the game against opposing tight ends. That's tough
Mhm.
to do. I mean that's hard to do.
Yeah.
And Jake Ferguson, the guy's the real deal. 5 catches today, 72 yards, jumping over people. He's going to be a problem for whenever they play each other for the next several years, unless the Eagles get something figured out there. And obviously, CD Lamb, big game. Michael Gallup, big game. But like you
Yeah.
said, it felt like the Cowboys were able to basically pick what they wanted to do. If they wanted to throw or run, like you said, not big runs, 3.8, 3.7 yards per carry, but they were able to stay ahead of the chains, and that makes playing defense a lot more difficult.
There just weren't a whole lot of second or third and longs for the Cowboys. You look at their first drive, Clay. They had a 3rd and 1. They got the Turpin end around plus 23 yards. All right, part of your first 15 plays. I'm sure that was an unscouted look for the Eagles. But then later in the drive, and you're gonna from a tight end standpoint or a pass catching standpoint, explain this one to me. It's 3rd and 2. Dak sort of scrambles to his left. He finds CD Lamb on a cross, kind of shallow cross. Now you see Nick Morrow and I believe was Zach Cunningham are both sort of running. Like he's got a little bit of a step on them. It didn't feel like, no, I'm sorry, it was Roby. It was Roby and Morrow.
Mhm.
It didn't feel to me at the start, watching it unfold, that if he throws the ball to CD Lamb, that it's a definite touchdown. First down, yes, touchdown, no. But then did they both sort of play the scramble? Like they both were worried about Dak running for the first down? Because I've never seen a guy who had 2 guys on him all of a sudden just get so wide open like that before.
I'm gonna want to watch that. This will be a play that me and Greg highlight on Inside the Tape on Wednesday. But I want to look at that because I think they did. I think they didn't play off each other very well, and they both did the same thing. They
Mhm.
both were like playing the scramble, and they let the wide receiver get wide open, and that kind of set the tone for the rest of the game there, man. It was pretty unfortunate how that happened, but I think you're right. I think it was just a specific play to where they were in a good spot, and they both played the exact same thing. When you really got to play off, it's like a teeter totter, you got to know
Mhm.
which one of you are doing one or the other, and I think they got caught right there.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really tough, especially because it's a first drive, right? And now you're
Yeah,
you're already behind, you fumble. The second drive for the Cowboys, this is a time where the Eagles got them in 3rd and 17. And
yeah,
here's something I thought Dak did well in this game. And I have to think this was from some tape study because not only were they running the ball fairly well up the middle, but Dak was climbing on a lot of his throw. He was taking 1 or 2 steps up toward his center, so toward the A gaps before making a throw and finding some protection there. And then on that 3rd and 17, he climbed up and then he hit, I think it was Gallup on the left side. And then you saw the Slay was sort of like muscling him up coming out of his break. And they called for defensive pass interference. That was backbreaking. That's a first down when you had 3rd and 17. And then later in the drive on a 2nd and 20, this is what's amazing to me. Dallas on this second possession false starts twice to put them at 2nd and 20, 3rd and 20. And then Mr. Backbreaker, who comes out of nowhere. I mean, who's heard of Brandon Aubrey, right? They were giving his story. He hits a 60-yard field goal, and then all of a sudden it's 10-0. But that to me was like failed opportunities for the Eagles defense when you had them, backed up a couple of times and you still wind up giving points up.
Huge opportunities, man. I didn't count. Obviously, I want to watch the all 22 and really break down some of these penalties. But some of these penalties are, I mean, like, come on, man, just make them make the play at least. And I think they got lucky on a couple too, as far as pass interference. So that's something that you got to try to get your eyes back to the ball. Slay had some nice plays tonight. He had some good PBUs, but I think they still are too handsy and they're holding a little bit too much in that aspect. But I think you said it. You're missing out on a lot of opportunities there with some of these going back to those 3rd and longs. You got to feel like every time there's a 3rd and long, over the middle, somebody's going to be open. And I don't know what the Eagles are. I know it's not good, but their 3rd down percentage coming into the game was awful. And then today, I don't got the numbers, but it could have been great.
Their 3rd down defense today, not very good, as Dallas gets 9 of 16 for 56%. And if you count their tush push or their version of it, there wasn't really, they're 10 of 17 if you go to situational 3rd and 4th down, 3 of 3, Clay, in the red zone, 2 of 2 on goal to go.
Yeah.
And again, you saw a touchdown on what looked like a rub route on the left side. The Eagles cannot defend the Eagles can't execute one on offense without being called for pass interference, right? AJ Brown
threw a flag. They picked up the flag though on the rub route for the.
I know.
For the guy. I thought they got him with it because it could have went either way.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was obviously in his way. Bradbury couldn't get through there. But I guess it was just a well executed route. But I thought they're going to throw the flag.
Yeah. Well, the turning point, obviously, to me, is you got 2nd and 6 Dallas has on their 4th drive, and Dak pushes one deep to Brandon Cooks, deep down the right sideline, past Bradbury. He beat Bradbury by like 2.5 steps, 3 steps for the 30-yard gain. That set up their touchdown to on the rub route we just talked about. They go up 24-6. At that point, Clay,
yeah,
it's like, all right, well, I can say the Eagles are going to move the ball, and they did, but they're really going to have to be very opportunistic, capitalize on everything, and then they're going to have to play good defense. But it just didn't seem like they'd be able to shut Dallas out. And then, again, they got the sack strip. They did show some pressure this game. Hassan Reddick got a sack, but here's how we move this forward. This Eagles defense is what it is, especially the back 7. They are going to have to outscore their opponents all the way to winning a Super Bowl. They're just going to have to. This is why I say it's not fair, but this is all on the offense. They've got to score 30 points a game.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And that's something me and Greg were talking about it. And I don't see how we ain't going to be able to pull a rabbit out of a hat here. This is what you got.
Yeah.
And when you blitz, the Eagles, the opposing quarterbacks are averaging a over 100 rating against the Eagles when they send a blitz. You can't blitz. This team is not a good blitzing team. The defensive backs can't cover when you blitz and you take a person out of coverage. You got to get it done with your front 4. So for me, defensively, the only hope there is that these front 4 can start taking over football games. I don't know what you need to do. If you need to start twisting more, if you need to start, mixing and matching, subbing people in more. I know last year felt like they had more of a rotation than they do this year. Get a better rotate. I don't know what you need to do, but these front 4 on defense, if you want to be successful, the defensive backfield ain't getting no better. These rookies, they're not getting no better. Bradley Roby is who he is. Byard has been there. They might continue to pick up the playbook. Maybe Shaq Lawrence improves the middle of your defense, but this front four is going to have to take over games if the Eagles want to be successful come playoff times and through the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, all right. One point on that before we kind of finish this off, but I do want to direct everybody to make sure they check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com, on Twitter at phlsportsnation. And this is really just a repetition of the conversation we've been having. Last year, the front four could take over. It was historical, 70 sacks. It was ridiculous to expect that they were going to be able to have 70 sacks or anywhere near that again. You shouldn't need to have 70 sacks, though, to be a dominant front. I mean, you can be a perfectly dominant front having 50 to 55.
Yeah.
This Eagles team was on pace for that at one point. They still have very good personnel. I do think you're seeing, and you know, you guys will watch the tape and tell me, I think you're seeing a little bit more chipping on the edges from tight ends, from running backs. You're seeing every once in a while a team is willing to keep a blocker in, right? Because they feel against the Eagles' back seven, you don't really need to have 5 outlets. You can probably win with 4 or 4 in a late release, the way the Eagles' back end is. And then secondary to that, last year, you could also say the Eagles weren't great in the back end, but clearly Bradbury was playing a lot better. CJ Gardner-Johnson was a playmaker. Marcus Epps was fast and dynamic.
Yeah.
TJ Edwards, you're seeing him in Chicago. I bet you he's made a difference in games for the Bears because he's smart. He gets there. He's in the right spot at the right time. Not the biggest guy in the world, but I just think you look at this back seven and you don't see right now and don't see the same amount of quickness, athleticism, dynamic play. They're steady. I don't think they're terrible, although the results the last 2 weeks haven't been great. But I just don't think that they're going to be anything better than steady at times, and that's on their best day.
Yeah, if the Eagles want to make a run in the playoffs this year, it's going to have to be different than it was last year. They're a different team. You get a lot of the same players. Makes you think that the team can be different, but this team has a different DNA. This team has a different identity. And if you're going to want to make a run like you did last year, it's going to have to look different. I think you're going to have to start controlling the football a little more, and you have to start outscoring your teams instead of trying to rely on your defense. Your offense is really going to have to take control. You got the playmakers, you got the offensive line. I think you got the running backs that can do it. So that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to play ball control football. You're going to have to outscore teams. The team got some parts that look the same, but the DNA and the identity as a whole on this Eagles team is different. So you can't expect them to do the things they did last year. You're a little bit spoiled, different defensive line, different defensive backfield, linebackers, completely different. TJ Edwards playing great football in Chicago. You saw the Chicago's defense is one of the best defenses in the league the last 5 games, and TJ Edwards has been balling out. But you don't have those guys in the middle of the Eagles defense anymore, so you're going to have to win in different ways.
All right, we'll leave it on this. You remember what I said about the explosive plays. You want to make explosive plays and limit explosive plays. Well, the Eagles had 3 plays of 20 or more yards in this game. Do you want to guess what the second most explosive play the Eagles had today was without looking at the sheet?
Say 10 yards.
No, it did not come from Jalen Hurts. It was a pass. It came from the punter to Olamide Zaccheaus for 28 yards on a fake punt. This was a great special teams game, by the way, between both kickers, right? And Zaccheaus catching a 28-yarder from Brendan Mann. Nice pass, perfectly. They must have seen something there.
Do you remember this? Do you remember this play? Let's check your Eagles knowledge here. Because back when I was playing with the Birds, Alex Henry had a similar play where he caught and he threw it to I think it was Demaris Johnson, and it was incomplete. And people murdered us for going for it on that play. It was just the dumbest call. Like, what is Andy? One of those. It was during that awful 2022 season, and it was just a pitch and catch, and Alex Henry couldn't get him the ball. Or no, it was Chaz. I'm sorry, it was Chaz. It was our punter. Alex Henry was our kicker. It was our punter, Chaz.
Oh, it wasn't Savroka? Hold on, who was it?
No. It was a dude from Florida. I forget his name. I see him, but I don't remember his name.
Maybe, oh, man.
Yeah, maybe someone in the chat can help us. But it was same thing. We saw it on film. And here's how it goes in film. when they're in a certain alignment.
It was
They got
Chaz
one,
Henry, by the way. His
Chaz
last name was Henry
Henry.
too. Yeah.
Okay, that's why I was getting confused. Chaz Henry, not Alex Henry. And we
Right.
saw it on tape, and I think it was Bobby April, and we're all excited about this play. We're like, dude, yeah, they're doing it every time. And when you start to show something on tape, when like the defender is bailing instead of playing like press man, you know, he starts to bail as soon as the ball snapped. So they saw that same thing we saw, but you know, Chaz, I'm so mad about it, ends up throwing an incomplete passes on that punt team. And then, you know, today they completed it. They saw it on tape. They took advantage of it. Hats off to Michael Clay. He's probably sitting there with his clicker and his pointer and goes, this guy bails every single snap that they have 2 cornerbacks on one side and 1 on the other. We can get something on that guy. And they went for it and they call it and they're aggressive. So I really like the play call. Took me back to Chaz Henry not being able to complete the play in Miami. We ended up losing the game. Everybody, you guys are all yelling at us, Jeff, and the media. What a dumb call. But hey, at least they got it back this time.
Well, I gotta say, I do remember Bobby April by the end there was really trying to throw the kitchen sink of special teams, you know, gadgets. I think there was a play where Riley Cooper like laid down.
He laid down in the end, but
zone.
we scored that. Oh, it was a bad lateral or something, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was
But
he like
took it
barking
all
like
the
a
way
dog
back.
too, or something crazy like?
Bobby always came up with some wild stuff, man. He didn't do a good job of explaining it. Well, that guy was a character.
He was definitely into his classic literature. I know that.
Yeah, he was. It was a hilarious coach.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we'll see. Again, one of the most explosive plays for the Eagles comes on special teams, which, you know, it's kind of ironic that the Eagles have a much better special teams unit this year, which cost them a Super Bowl last year, but now it's everything else that's kind of imploding. But they got a big game next Monday night against the Seattle Seahawks, a chance to get back on track in a place that's been tough to win, maybe not so much the last year or two. We'll see. I know Drew Luck started in the most recent game. We'll see what happens in a week from now. But that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds Postgame Live. For Clay Harbor, I'm Geoff Mosher. Big thanks to our producer, Jimmy Hyden. We'll catch you all on the next one.